welcome to Just Business Talk. Today we're joined by Ben, founder of Ascento Capital and Tech M&A expert with over 20 years of experience from closing deals globally to sharing insights on Bloomberg and Fox News. Ben's expertise is unmatched. Let's dive into his journey and uncover the latest in tech and finance. Ben, welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to have you here today with us. So you have a fantastic journey that has taken you from law school to investment banking and now to founding Ascento
Welcome.
Capital.
Thanks for
Can
having
you
me.
start by
Appreciate
telling
it.
us a bit more about your early career and how did you transition from New York University Law School into the world of tech and M&A?
Sure, and I'd be happy to. So it's been an excellent journey thus far. Started my career in law school at NYU in New York, and then transitioned to White and Case, big law firm in New York as well. Corporate finance side of deals from the legal angle, which is excellent even today, just for knowing terms and conditions. And then after a couple of years at White and Case, moved to Vienna, Austria, and was there. Joined an investment bank, Erste Bank, and did much M&A IPO activity in Eastern Europe, Russia, and Western Europe. So very exciting time there. Came back, joined Barclays Bank in New York and their M&A division, and was really working in industrials to some extent. And then tail end of that was in tech, and then
Great.
started a couple
Wow,
of
nice.
boutiques,
So
also
you
focused
have
on
over
tech
20 years
before
of
Ascento
experience in
Capital,
technology,
and we're a little
merger and
over 7 years
acquisitions,
old
so
now.
covering sectors from AI and cybersecurity to health tech and SaaS. So what sparked your passion for technology and how do you stay ahead in such a rapidly changing industry? Yeah.
It's interesting. It's just a fascinating sector. Number one, I kind of grew up in Silicon Valley, which helps. So surrounded by tech growing up, but
Mhm.
staying abreast of it, you've just got to really focus in on the latest developments. AI is a great example as a sector. You've got to read a lot. You got to talk to a lot of people. I was attending a session at Bloomberg last night as an example with a gentleman from Andreessen Horowitz talking on AI.
Yeah, indeed,
So
AI is
it's really
growing at the
important
moment, and
to
I
just
think
really absorb as much info as
the AI is
possible,
going to
especially in a
make
fast moving
a
sector like
lot
AI.
of changes in the future. Today, I was reading that AI can prepare the pre-IPO documents in minutes, which used to take six people a few weeks to prepare. So it's going to have a big effect in all kind of industries. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right
Yeah.
about that. I mean, corporate finance is always interesting because you had traditionally,
Mm.
the six guys working on the prospectus, right, for the IPO,
Yeah.
and now it's just such a good job of the synthesizing data and summarizing data. I mean, you still need human intervention as an editing function, but otherwise, it's fantastic at that. So,
Hmm.
among other applications, so it'll be interesting to see. My
Hmm.
own view on that, I think it's not going to replace jobs as
Exactly.
fast as people think it
Yeah.
will. It's going to take a few years for that to kick in, but it will increase productivity, which is exciting, right? So, if you really stay on top of the
Yeah.
AI tools, then you can be
Certainly,
more
it is.
productive,
I
and
think in
just for the
M&A
economy
industry,
in
the AI
general,
will
productivity is one of the
not
key
replace the
drivers.
human. It
So it'll be
can't
interesting to
because
see
of
the
the
effect.
relationship, the negotiation and all this required yet. But certainly, it will, as you said, it will definitely take away all the back office tasks which used to be done by previously by humans. So it will definitely is going to have effect in that way, but the human touch would be always there. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah, I think you're right
definitely.
about that. It's very confidential what you're doing.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, so
that's part of the
let's
key.
talk
Is
about a
you're
little
not
bit more about
trading
your
stocks, right?
company,
Which
Ascento Capital.
is
I
is
hope
getting
I'm
more and more
pronouncing it
replaced by
right. Yeah.
AI.
By the way, I'm curious. What does it mean, Ascento?
That's correct. Yeah.
Right? Is it Spanish?
It's a
Italian
good name. It just
Ascento.
means,
Yeah, nice name.
ascending,
I like
right?
that.
So growing
Yeah.
effectively,
So
which is
starting
the
your own
goal for
firm
tech
is
companies.
not a small,
It's Italian,
I mean,
actually. Yeah.
decision. What
Mhm.
inspired you to found
Thank you.
Ascento Capital, and what has been the most rewarding part of building your own firm? Focus on tech M&A.
I think actually repeating clients is actually great. Just relationships you have. I just completed a valuation work for a very large
Hmm.
nonprofit for senior housing, and I've done a number of pieces of work for that company as well as a previous company that was public with the same people. So kind of continues through the years, which is
Hmm.
very rewarding. You do quality work and they come back. And I just got a call from an old colleague of mine from Barclays Bank on an AI deal. So it's fun to have those
Hmm.
relationships. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of fun. And
So
in the
how
end,
does it
when
work,
you close the deal,
Ascento?
it's
What
you, right?
services do you
So it's
provide? You mainly
you've done the
work on
work
buy
and
side, sell side,
you
both
get
sides.
rewarded. So
So
it is very
what are
fulfilling.
the activities? Hmm. Hmm.
It's about eighty
Okay.
percent sell side and 20% buy side. We've got a buy side right now from an Indian public company, as an example. We've got a sell side as well and another sell side. So two sell sides, one buy side. Pretty normal actually for the
Hmm.
mix. And occasional help with capital raise, private equity, take privates. We just did a take private in Europe.
Yeah. So do you also participate
Typical
in
deal size
fundraising
is 20
rounds
to
or
200
only
million.
merger acquisitions?
We go above that and below that as well, depending on the deal.
Hmm.
Yeah, occasionally, usually in parallel with the M&A, right? So if a company is looking to,
Right.
get
Yeah. Yeah.
acquired or potentially raise more capital, then it'll have more options to bring to the board, which is the key function of a banker, right? You're
Hmm.
bringing options to the board. They can, hey, call it a B round, can raise another 20 million or sell for 200 million, right? So, and oftentimes there's risks with both, right? So, selling you might
Hmm.
sell too early, but then again, if you take the 20 million, you'll have
Yeah.
operational, financial,
Yeah.
competitive risks as well, right? To grow the company. And
Yeah.
not all of them grow
And
well.
you're
So
only
maybe you
active
should have
in
sold for
US
200,
market or you
right?
work
So it's always
cross-border
interesting to
transactions as
see
well?
that decision tree. Cross border, pretty global, actually. As I said, we have an Indian buy
Hmm.
side right now representing a public Indian company.
Yeah.
Uh, Relatively recently, we completed a sell side in Sweden of an
Hmm.
IoT Internet of Things company in
Yeah.
Sweden and did an international auction for them. We always reach out internationally. You just never know who's going to be interested. We had written offers from
Hmm.
big companies in Taiwan,
Yeah.
Germany,
Nice. Nice.
Israel, two in the
And
US.
what
One
do you
was
see the
backed by the
trends in
Riverside
M&A
Company,
tech
private
industry?
equity firm, and they won the auction.
What do you see in 2025?
24 was an accelerated year. It's definitely growing M&A. And then 25 will grow even faster for a couple of reasons. One is, the dry powder of the private equity firms. They've got a lot of dry powder. They need to do something with their portfolio companies, whether it's, merging them with another company, selling them typically to a strategic. So the private equity market is going to be quite active.
Yeah.
There's more
Hmm.
IPOs, and typically when a company IPOs, they'll
Hmm.
be more acquisitive just because they have the public stock as their currency, right?
Yeah.
As their consideration. A little easier to give than private stock because you're illiquid still, but if it's public stock, you're liquid. So that's another angle. The other one is that I think the valuation is coming back to earth to quite an extent in terms of going from 2021, which was the peak year, to 2025. So it's been a few years, and I think that, you know, if you were on the board getting an offer for
Yeah,
200 million,
exactly. Yeah,
and in 2021, you had an offer for 500 million, you probably wouldn't take the
hmm,
200
yeah,
million,
yeah,
right? A year later. But now you probably would because your competitor just got
yeah,
sold for
exactly. It's
190 million,
it's funny that
right?
you mentioned
So that's
valuations.
the
Today,
key
I had
thing
a
is
meeting with
time does
someone,
heal
a
all wounds
seller,
in terms of valuation.
who approached us that he's looking to sell his digital marketing business, kind of a tech business. So, uh, 1 million dollar. We'll say in dollars. So here we use a different currency, but 1 million USD, 15% bottom line. How much would you value that business? Yeah, digital marketing. Yeah.
What's the sector again? Digital marketing.
Yeah.
It's
So
probably, I
they
would assume
expect
it's going to
about
be
25,
10x
26
EBITDA would be a good
multiples of EBITDA.
good angle there. 10 to
Very
12x
high
EBITDA.
valuation. Hmm.
You can get it. You can get that. It depends on what they're doing, what their
Yeah.
niche they're in, how fast it's growing, quality of the management team,
Hmm.
the client list. How fast that thing's churning the client
Hmm.
list, if it churns at
Hmm.
all. There's a lot of different angles there. And then the other one is,
Hmm.
whether it's an auction process, right, to increase the bids. So that's, it's feasible if you just got to get an auction process. And that's one thing a lot of sellers miss out on is they're trying to, sell their own company. And it's very challenging sometimes. You may have just one or two bids. The whole
Hmm.
function of a banker is to reach out to the market aggressively and create bids, right? Competing bids.
Hmm.
And that's the key. Back to the Swedish company, they had five different bids on the table. So, the
And how do you
valuation
bid?
was
Do you
quite
use
nice,
platform to
right?
bid
Much more
for
than
these companies,
your
or
typical
they?
comparable company precedent transaction valuation. No, you actually, so you've got call it three potential acquirers at the table, right, for your sell side client. So you're representing the seller, and then you ask them to put a bid in at a date certain, and at that date they've got to submit a
Hmm.
formal letter, and you give them the requirements of the letter, all
Hmm.
three of them. So when the letters come in, you can compare, right? What not only the valuation, that's key number, obviously, but what are you doing with the management team? What type of consideration is it, stock or cash? What's the mix there? What are your long-term plans, et cetera?
Yeah. Continue. Yeah. So you can
No
finish.
worries. Yeah, so yeah, that's the key thing is you
Hmm.
get a date certain, you get three written bids in, written offers, bring them to the board, compare, and then typically,
Hmm.
you ask for best and
Yeah.
final offers, which is a little bit of a sweetener, and then select the buyer that wins the auction process. Then you go into an
Hmm.
exclusive period. They'll always ask for an exclusive. So
Yeah.
they're going to put a lot of effort into due diligence and bring in the lawyers to help with the definitive agreements, bring
Yeah.
in the accountants for the financial due diligence. There's going to be
Yeah.
tech due
So, for example,
diligence,
in
and
our
then close the
sector,
deal.
so we specialize in brick and mortar businesses only. So, my firm, we sell low mid market brick and mortar businesses. I'm basically building a platform, AI matchmaking platform, which automates a lot of tasks which normal business brokers have to do every day. So we're trying to utilize the AI and automate those tasks. So we have many challenges we face day to day, and one of the biggest challenge we face with the sellers is the financials. very brick and mortar small business owners, they don't have proper bookkeeping or financials in place for the prospective buyer to validate those numbers. So, what are the challenges you face in tech companies when you evaluate them? What are the challenges you face at sell side and the buy side?
Yeah, financials is always typically a weak point because they're trying to grow their company and they're not necessarily paying attention to it. So if you can get reviewed financials, or depending on the how big the
Hmm.
company's audited financials, that helps quite a bit. Third party view on the financials. But it's interesting. Every company has their weak point. It's always helpful as a business owner preparing for M&A to look at your departments, right? As look at all your departments and figure out which is the weakest department. For tech companies, often it's sales and marketing. It's just because they're focused on the product, the tech product, and trying to get version
Hmm.
6.0 out the door, which is a huge amount of effort. But the sales and marketing tends to be weak, and then you got to figure from the buy side, what their weakest is and how to remedy that. I was on a deal. It was actually on the buy side for an Indian company again, and they were, doing a great job. The company is fantastic. It was a $330 million transaction, and the CTO was from my client was going to look at their tech
Yeah.
center, right, of the seller, the tech center, and he comes back and he just had us in a group, only the buy side. He goes, their tech center
Hmm.
is a broom closet with a dusty server. So,
Yeah.
uh, and they still did the deal, but
Hmm.
they spent a lot of effort right after it closed on making sure that their
Hmm.
tech center was up to snuff,
Yeah.
right,
So
from
how's your
security and everything
setup
else.
is at your firm? How are you set up? How many are you in the team?
Oh, it's myself
All right.
and
Do
two
you
associates.
when you take up a client, you travel to meet them, or you do only remote only? Yeah.
Occasionally, most of
Yeah,
it's Zoom calls
interesting.
these
I
days.
think it's
It's
also
interesting.
my team. The mostly most of them they work remotely, and it's worked fantastically well. And that's what I'm trying to do. And also brick and mortar businesses.
Yeah, makes sense.
Most of our teams are also remotely based. And what I see is some business brokers are still working the old-fashioned way. That way, they're actually traveling and meeting with the sellers when they call them, and then takes up a lot of time, in physical meetings. So I think Zoom and remote working is the way forward. I'm a big believer of this.
Yeah,
Yes,
likewise, likewise. I think the one thing the pandemic taught us, it's actually very efficient. If you use
exactly.
virtual data rooms, for instance, there's a
No,
lot of
I
things you
mean
can do that are
pre-COVID, I know
very digital,
I've been an
and
entrepreneur
it's
for a long, long
fantastic.
time.
It's
I,
just
I
so
own
much
many
more efficient.
businesses. But before COVID, if you ask someone that, hey, do you want to work for me from home? They used to think, oh, this is a fake company. And sometimes someone, yeah, nobody will ever believe you that you're a real company if you ask someone to work from home, right? And
Right.
if you don't have no,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's That's true in tech as well. It's like, you get a tech company and they'll have 20 people that are remote in different countries. And
exactly.
pre-COVID, it was like, why aren't they in one office, right? And
Ex-
now it's like completely normal to have, it's more
Exactly.
efficient, actually get better
Exactly,
talent
and
that
same
way,
goes
to have
used to be
people
for
working
with the
on
client as
Slack
well. If
every
you tell a
day,
client, "Oh
right?
yeah, I don't have an
All over the
office,"
world.
the client will believe you that actually you're a legitimate company or it really exists. But now it doesn't matter. Yeah. So Ben, you have shared your expertise on Fox News. You just touched that earlier on in our podcast. Fox News, Bloomberg, and various panels. So, what's been the most memorable experience sharing your insights and how that his exposure impacted your career?
I think it's always useful. It's good to be on panels and speak, and certainly TV helps as well. And it's just really interesting to see how the whole industry works. I think one of the more interesting things, it wasn't actually tech. I was brought into Fox News for with Neil Cavuto for tech originally, and then he had me on for many other topics, including the price of
Hmm.
oil one time. And I was on with this gentleman from the Strategic Petroleum Institute, and he was had 30 years of
Oh.
experience in the oil sector. 30 years. I looked at my notes for about an hour before the call, and we went into it. And he was like, the price of oil is going to decrease because there's horizontal drilling, et cetera, and there's a lot more supply. I said, well, the countries like India are going to and China are going to increase
Hmm.
demand. The price of oil is going to go up. And Neil Cavuto at the end, he goes, I agree with
Yeah.
Ben. So guess what? The price of oil actually did go up after that, so I was correct. But it's interesting to see that the talking
Yeah.
heads how much
Yeah.
they actually do. But it was I did my research for sure, so it
Hmm.
was a good event. But it's good just to keep in
Yeah.
tabs on the market. I think that's a
In
key thing. The
M&A
panels are good to
work
attend or
we work
participate
in,
in.
I think one of our successes when we close a deal successfully. So, how do you define success in your work? Closing a deal is a success, or there are other milestone you take as your KPIs to see if you're successful? Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I think closing deals certainly is the easiest to measure as a
Yeah.
KPI. But also as I mentioned before, repeat relationships are excellent. Clients that come back after you sell a company, so
Great,
it
great.
takes a few
So,
years
what's
for
next
them to
for
come
Ascento
back for the
Capital?
next
Where do you
company,
see
but they do
your
come back,
firm
so that's
or you
gratifying.
steering in the next 5 years?
I think the AI sector is just fascinating. So it's we're doing an AI deal right now. Well, we're doing a software deal as well. We're doing other deals, digital media, but AI is going
Hmm.
to really it's going to have some legs. I'll just give you an example of that from an M&A
Yeah,
perspective.
I know that work.
Y Combinator, which is a very much a very famous incubator. So for 2024, they had 34 companies focused just on legal AI. So
Wow.
technology for the legal sector with an AI focus. So 34 of those, right? So there's a huge amount of money going in, huge amount of firms being founded. It's a great sector, but it's going to consolidate. That's the key thing. So it's already starting
Exciting
in
times ahead. So,
2025,
finally,
and it'll continue
would
for a
you
couple of years.
give any advice to someone who's looking to exit their business today in our podcast? So, what are the few pieces of advice that you give?
Yeah, I think preparation, as you kind of hinted at, in terms of the financials, right? Get those in order. Spend a couple of months on preparation if you can. That's key, and just look at your different departments, figure out what the weakest is, try to shore that up. And then in terms of the actual M&A, it's a process. And as I mentioned, getting competition is the most important thing. Think of it as selling your luxury mansion in Beverly Hills for $50 million, right? So how do you do that? And you see people put for sale by owner signs up, so they're trying to sell it themselves with traffic coming by, or you hire a real estate broker. It's a good analogy that can help you sell for 50 million, if not more, because they know the market, they know the value, they may know buyers as well, specifically that are interested in your property, and then they'll help you with negotiations on the valuation and the structure of the deal and closing the deal. So
Yeah,
it's a
great
good
advice.
analogy, but it does
Finally, how
help to
can we get in
have
touch with
the
you?
best advisors around you and the best talent. Well, the best way is probably email. It's ben
All
at
right. Thank you, Ben. It's been
ascentocapital.com.
absolutely
I'm
pleasure
also
having
on
you on the
LinkedIn,
show. Your
Twitter,
insights,
etc.
experience, and advice are truly invaluable. And I'm sure our listeners have taken away some incredible lessons from today's conversation. Thank you, and signing off for today.